The crimson ships appeared without warning in Earth's orbit. They were massive, each one 3 times larger than humanity's biggest space station. Their hulls gleamed like fresh blood under the distant sun, and strange symbols glowed along their sides. The Vakrian Empire had arrived. Admiral Jiho stood in the command center of Sol Station, watching the alien fleet through the observation windows. His face remained calm, though his heart beat faster than usual. Behind him, dozens of officers watched their screens, tracking every movement of the strange vessels. The station's alarms had gone silent now, placed by an eerie quiet as everyone waited. A communication request came through. Jiho nodded to his communications officer, a young woman named Yunji, who had been with him for 5 years. She pressed a button, and the main screen flickered to life. The creature that appeared made several officers gasp. It stood nearly 8 feet tall, covered in what looked like crystalline armor that reflected light in rainbow patterns. It had 4 arms, each ending in 3-fingered hands. Its face was difficult to read, alien and sharp, with eyes that glowed a faint purple. "I am War Diplomat Krell of the Vakrian Empire," the creature said. The voice came through a translation device, flat and mechanical. "You will allow me to board your station. This is not a request." Jiho glanced at General Hannah, who stood beside him. She was shorter than him, her hair pulled back in a tight bun, her eyes sharp and calculating. She gave him a small nod. They had expected this. Earth's long-range sensors had detected the Vakrian fleet 2 days ago, heading straight for their solar system. "You may board," Jiho said. "Docking Bay 7. Come alone." The war diplomat's eyes seemed to brighten. "I do not come alone. I bring guards, as is proper." "Then bring 2, Jiho replied. "No more." There was a pause. Then the creature tilted its head in what might have been agreement. The screen went dark. 20 minutes later, Jiho stood in the docking bay with a small group. General Hannah was there, her uniform perfectly pressed despite the early hour. Commander Taiyang had joined them too, a stocky man with scars on his hands from his years in the Marine Corps. Behind them stood 6 human soldiers. Armed but not aggressive, their weapons held at rest. The airlock hissed open. War Diplomat Krell entered, followed by 2 guards that looked even more dangerous than their leader. They carried weapons that hummed with energy, and their armor was thicker, darker. The Vakrians walked with absolute confidence. As if they owned the station already, Jiho stepped forward and bowed slightly, a gesture of greeting but not submission. "Welcome to Sol Station. I am Admiral Jiho of the United Earth Defense Force." Krell did not bow. Instead, the creature's forearms spread wide in what the humans would later learn was a Vakrian gesture of dominance. "Your greeting is noted. Now we will proceed to business. The Vakrian Empire has decided that your world will surrender." The words hung in the air. Hannah's expression did not change, but Jiho saw her jaw tighten slightly. Taiyang shifted his weight, his hand moving unconsciously toward his sidearm before he stopped himself. "Surrender," Jiho repeated. It was not a question. "Yes. You have 72 of your hours to comply. If you do not, we will demonstrate our power. After the demonstration, you will have no choice but to submit or face extinction." Krell began to walk around the docking bay as if inspecting it. "Do not mistake this for negotiation. We are informing you of reality." The war diplomat continued, his voice growing stronger. "The Vakrian Empire has conquered 17 star systems. We have crushed civilizations that had mastered space travel before your ancestors left their caves. We have weapons that can crack planets like eggs. Our soldiers feel no fear, no pain, and no mercy." Krell stopped and turned to face the humans directly. "We destroyed the Meridian Prime in 6 hours. The siege of Kelter lasted only 4 hours before they begged for mercy. The Ceph Defense Fleet, which numbered over 200 vessels, was annihilated in a single engagement. They thought they were strong. They were wrong." The creature's eyes seemed to glow brighter. "We are inevitable. We are the tide that washes away all resistance. Every species has tried to fight us. Every species has failed. You are not special. You are not unique. You are simply next." Then Krell did something strange. The creature opened its mouth and released a sound. It was not speech. It was a harmonic frequency that seemed to vibrate through the station itself. The sound was designed to trigger fear in prey species, to make them understand on a primal level that death was coming. It was the Vakrian war cry, the sound that had echoed across 17 conquered worlds. The human soldiers tensed. One of them, a young corporal, went pale. But none of them broke formation. None of them ran. Jeho stood perfectly still, letting the sound wash over him. He had heard worse sounds in his life. The screams of wounded soldiers, the silence after a battle, the final words of dying friends. This alien noise was just noise. When Krell finished, the war diplomat seemed satisfied. That is the sound of your future. Learn it well. Now, you will consult with your leaders. You have 12 hours to prepare your formal surrender. We are generous to give you this time. Use it wisely. Jeho nodded slowly. We will need to speak with Earth's military leadership. This decision cannot be made by one person. Of course not, Krell said, almost dismissively. Even simple creatures must consult their herds. We understand this. 12 hours. Then we return, and you will tell us how your surrender will proceed. The war diplomat turned and walked back toward the airlock, the guards following. Just before the door closed, Krell looked back. Do not do anything foolish. We have eyes on your entire world. Any military movement will be seen as aggression. Any attempt to flee will be seen as guilt. Stand still, little humans, and wait for the inevitable. The airlock sealed. The humans stood in silence for a long moment. Then Taiyang spoke, his voice quiet but steady. Admiral, permission to speak freely? Granted. Did that alien really just threaten us with a 72-hour deadline and think that was scary? Hannah made a sound that might have been a suppressed laugh. Jeho felt a smile tugging at his lips, but he pushed it down. Not yet. Not here where the Vakrians might still be watching. Prepare the emergency council, Jeho said. Get everyone online within the hour. All senior commanders, all fleet admirals, everyone. This is going to be interesting. As the officers dispersed to make preparations, Jeho looked out at the Vakrian fleet through the bay's small window. The ships hung there in space, as confident and powerful and absolutely certain of their victory. They had no idea what was coming. The war room in Geneva hummed with quiet energy as holographic projections materialized around the circular table. One by one, Earth's top military leaders appeared, their images flickering into solid-looking forms. They came from command centers across the planet, from orbital stations, from deep space monitoring posts. Within 30 minutes, the room was full. Admiral Jeho sat at the physical table, the only person actually present in Geneva. Around him, the holograms took their seats. General Suji appeared from the Asian Pacific Command, her gray hair cut short, her uniform decorated with more medals than most officers would earn in a lifetime. Marshal Dayan materialized next, representing the European alliance. His broad shoulders and scarred face, showing decades of service. Admiral Yuna joined from Fleet Command, younger than the others, but sharp and quick. Commander Taiyang's hologram sat beside Jeho, though the real man was still on Sol Station. Others filled in the gaps. General Minho from Ground Forces, his face weathered like old leather. Colonel Haijin from Intelligence. Captain Dongmin from Special Operations. Major Insu from Strategic Planning. Dozens more, each one a veteran, each one chosen because they were the best at what they did. Let's begin, Jeho said. He pressed a control, and the center of the table lit up. A three-dimensional image of the Vakrian war diplomat appeared, frozen in mid-speech. This is what we're dealing with, Jeho continued. The Vakrian Empire. They arrived 6 hours ago with a fleet of approximately 40 vessels. They've given us 72 hours to surrender Earth and all human colonies. He played the recording of Krell's speech. The war room listened in silence as the war diplomat boasted about conquering 17 systems, about crushing the Meridian Prime, about the 4-hour siege of Kelter. When Krell's war cry echoed through the speakers, several officers flinched at the alien sound. The recording ended. Silence filled the room. Then someone snickered. It was General Minho. The old soldier's shoulders started shaking. He tried to stop it, covering his mouth with his hand, but it was too late. The laugh escaped, rough and genuine. For hours, Minho gasped. They think a 4-hour siege is impressive. That broke the dam. General Suji's face split into a grin, and she started laughing too. Within seconds, the sound spread through the war room like a chain reaction. Marshal Dayan slapped his thigh, roaring with amusement. Admiral Yuna wiped tears from her eyes. Even the usually serious Colonel Hygiene was grinning. Yaho, who had maintained perfect composure in front of the Vakrians, finally allowed himself to smile. It grew into a chuckle, then a full laugh. General Hannah, sitting beside him in holographic form from Seoul Station, was laughing so hard she had to lean on the table. 72 hours, Hannah managed to say between gasps. They gave us 72 hours to decide. Like, that's supposed to pressure us. They said their war cry would make us understand death was coming, Taiyang added, wiping his eyes. That sound? That's what they think is scary? The laughter continued for almost a minute before it slowly died down. Officers wiped their eyes, caught their breath, and looked at each other with the kind of dark humor that only soldiers understood. General Suji was the first to speak seriously. All right, let's actually think about this. They said they conquered 17 civilizations. That's their big achievement. 17. She pulled up a display from her side of the connection. Numbers began flowing across the center table. Humans have fought approximately 14,500 documented wars in our recorded history. And that's just the ones we wrote down. The ones we remember? Minho nodded, pulling up more data. The 100 Years' War between England and France actually lasted 116 years. The 30 Years' War in Europe, various Chinese dynasties fighting for centuries. The Roman Empire expanding for 500 years. They think 17 conquests make them unstoppable, Marshal Dayan said, shaking his head. We've had single empires on Earth conquer more territories than that. The Mongols conquered most of Asia and parts of Europe. The British Empire controlled a quarter of the world's land, and those were just humans fighting other humans. Admiral Yuna brought up more information. Their war cry. It's psychologically interesting, I'll give them that. A sonic frequency designed to trigger fear responses in prey species. It's actually pretty clever, except we're not prey species, Colonel Hyjin noted. Humans are persistence hunters. We're the things that chase prey until it collapses from exhaustion. We're the species that invented the concept of psychological warfare, because physical warfare wasn't complicated enough for us. Captain Dungman leaned forward. Let's talk about what actually makes humans dangerous. The Vakrians say their soldiers feel no pain, no fear, no mercy. They said that like it was impressive. He pulled up medical records, combat reports, historical documents. We have documented cases of human soldiers continuing to fight with catastrophic injuries. Soldiers who lost limbs and kept shooting. Pilots who flew planes with fatal wounds to get their crews home. Marines who jumped on grenades to save their friends. There's a difference, Major Insu said quietly, between soldiers who cannot feel fear and soldiers who feel fear and fight anyway. The first is just biology. The second is choice. The room went quiet for a moment, considering that. General Suji spoke again. They boasted about destroying civilizations in hours. 4 hours? 6 hours? They think that's fast. She pulled up Earth's military history. The Battle of Stalingrad lasted 200 days. The Siege of Leningrad lasted 872 days. The Vietnam War lasted 20 years. We once had a war, the Arauco War in South America, that lasted 350 years. And we remember all of them, Hannah added. We build monuments to our defeats. We study our failures. We teach our children about the wars we lost, so they'll understand the cost of war. What kind of species does that? Marshal Dayon brought up cultural data. We write poetry about our wars, music, stories. We have entire genres of literature dedicated to warfare. We make movies about battles that happened thousands of years ago. We turn our bloodiest moments into art. The Iliad is about a war, Minho said. One of our oldest surviving stories, and it's about a 10-year siege. We've been obsessed with war since we learned to write. Maybe before. Taiyang stood up, even though his hologram didn't really need to. Here's what I think the Vakrians don't understand. They see war as a tool for conquest. For them, it's about winning quickly and moving on. But for humans? He paused. For humans, war is something we've perfected over 10,000 years. It's not just what we do. It's part of who we are. We invented the concept of total war, Colonel Higgins said. We created rules for war, then created ways to break those rules. We developed strategies so complex that we still study battles from thousands of years ago to understand them. Admiral Yuna pulled up tactical data. They outnumber our visible fleet 3-1. They probably think that's overwhelming odds. She smiled. They haven't seen our actual military capability. They've scanned our civilian defense stations and tourist orbital platforms. Jiho stood now, looking around at all the faces, holographic and real. So the question is simple. Do we surrender to a species that thinks 17 conquests make them unstoppable? To an empire that thinks a 4-hour battle is a long siege? Two warriors who've never faced an enemy that writes poetry about their wars? The answer came from every throat in the room, a chorus of no. General Minho grinned, showing teeth. I think it's time we gave the Vakrian Empire an education. Let's show them what 10,000 years of warfare looks like. Around the table, Earth's greatest warriors smiled. The Vakrians had made a mistake. They had threatened a species that had been fighting itself since the dawn of civilization. They had given an ultimatum to the only species in the galaxy that had survived everything their own planet could throw at them and kept fighting. The Vakrians thought they were inevitable. They were about to learn what human inevitability really meant. The laughter had faded, replaced by something colder and more focused. General Suji stood at the holographic display, pulling up file after file of human military history. The other officers watched, and with each new piece of information, their expressions shifted from amusement to something harder. Let's do this properly, Suji said. Let's actually compare what the Vakrians think is impressive to what humans have actually done, because I don't think they've done their homework. She brought up a timeline that stretched back thousands of years. The Vakrians said they destroyed Meridian Prime in 6 hours. That's their fastest victory. So let's talk about human warfare speed. She highlighted several points on the timeline. 6-Day War in 1967. Israel fought Egypt, Jordan, and Syria simultaneously, and won in less than a week. The Gulf War in 1991. Coalition forces defeated the Iraqi military in 43 days. Marshal Dayoun added more data.
Ow.
But that's modern warfare with technology. Let's go back further.
Alexander.
The Great conquered most of the known world in 13 years. Genghis Khan's Mongol Empire expanded across Asia in decades, not centuries. The Roman legions could march 20 miles per day in full armor and then build a fortified camp every night. Speed is impressive, Admiral Yuna said. But let's talk about endurance. The Vakrians think a 4-hour siege is noteworthy. She pulled up records. The siege of Tyre lasted 7 months. The siege of Candia lasted 21 years. 21 years. The defenders and attackers fought for over 2 decades for a single city. General Minho leaned back in his chair. And let's not forget the wars that just wouldn't end. The Reconquista in Spain lasted 780 years. 7 centuries of continuous warfare. Byzantine Empire fought for survival for over 1,000 years, constantly at war with someone. Colonel Hyjin brought up psychological warfare data. Vakrians have their war cry, that sonic frequency thing. It's designed to make prey species freeze in fear. She displayed human psychological tactics. We invented war drums to coordinate attacks. We used bagpipes to terrify enemies. Vikings would bite their shields and howl like wolves. The Maori haka dance was designed to intimidate opponents before battle. Native American warriors used war cries that could be heard for miles. But we didn't stop at sound, Captain Dongman added. We invented propaganda. We dropped leaflets from planes to demoralize enemies. We broadcast radio messages. We used fake equipment to make our armies look bigger. We built fake towns to trick enemy bombers. We created entire phantom armies that didn't exist. Major and Sue pulled up strategic data. The Vakrians boast about their tactics. They overwhelm civilizations with superior numbers and firepower. That's basic. Let me show you human tactics. The display filled with battle diagrams. The Battle of Cannae, 216 BC. Hannibal surrounded and destroyed a Roman army twice his size using a double envelopment. We still study that battle today, over 2,000 years later. The Battle of Agincourt, Marshal d'Ayoun said. English longbowmen defeated a French army that outnumbered them 5-1. The French were wearing heavy armor and thought they were invincible. They were wrong. Admiral Una highlighted naval battles. The Battle of Salamis. Greek triremes defeated a Persian fleet that vastly outnumbered them by using the terrain and better tactics. The Battle of Tsushima. Japanese forces destroyed the Russian Baltic fleet, sinking most of their ships while losing almost none of their own. Here's what I think is important, General Hannah said, her hologram standing up. The Vakrians think warfare is about having better weapons and more soldiers. They've never faced an enemy that treats war as an art form, science, a philosophy. She brought up Earth's military academies. We have schools that teach nothing but warfare. West Point, Sandhurst, St. Cyr, the Whampoa Military Academy. We send our best and brightest to spend years studying how to fight. We make them read books written thousands of years ago about strategy. We teach them mathematics and engineering and psychology, all in service of making better warriors. General Suji nodded. And we don't just teach success, we teach failure. Every officer in this room has studied battles we lost, defeats that cost thousands of lives. We analyze what went wrong. We learn from our mistakes. The Vakrians probably celebrate their victories. We memorialize our defeats, so we never repeat them. Taiyang brought up training data. They said their soldiers feel no pain. Let me tell you about human soldiers. He displayed boot camp footage, special forces training, extreme environment conditioning. We voluntarily push our bodies to the breaking point. We train in deserts that reach 50 degrees Celsius. We train in Arctic conditions at 40 below zero. We run until we collapse, then we get up and run more. We have a saying, Minho added. Pain is temporary, pride is forever. We teach our soldiers to embrace suffering because suffering makes them stronger. We don't eliminate pain, we master it. Colonel Haijin pulled up casualty reports from throughout history. The Vakrians said their soldiers feel no mercy. They think that's a strength. Let me show you something interesting about human warfare. She displayed the Geneva Conventions, the laws of war, rules of engagement. We created rules for how to fight. We decided some things were too cruel, even in war. We made agreements about treating prisoners, protecting civilians, banning certain weapons. And then, Captain Dongman said quietly, when those rules were broken, we hunted down the ones who broke them. We held war crimes trials. We executed our own soldiers when they violated the laws of war. Because for humans, there's a difference between necessary violence and cruelty. But here's the terrifying part, Major and Sue said. Even with all those rules, even with all our attempts to limit warfare, humans still found ways to make war more effective. We didn't need to be merciless. We just needed to be better. Admiral Una brought up weapons development history. The Vakrians probably think their energy weapons are impressive. Let's see what humans have invented. It's a display filled with images. Crossbows that could punch through armor. Greek fire that burned on water. Gunpowder weapons. Rifles with accurate ranges of over 1 kilometer. Artillery that could fire shells 50 kilometers. Nuclear weapons that could destroy entire cities. And those are just the kinetic weapons, General Hannah added. We invented chemical weapons, biological weapons, radiological weapons. We created things so terrible that we banned ourselves from using them, made weapons and then said, no, that's too much, and locked them away. What other species does that? Marshal d'Ayoun stood, his hologram seeming to loom larger. Here's what I want the Vakrians to understand. They've conquered 17 civilizations in their expansion. That's impressive to them. But on Earth? Had 17 different major civilizations just in the Mediterranean region alone. Egypt, Greece, Rome, Carthage, Persia, Assyria, the Hittites, the Phoenicians, and they were all fighting each other constantly. China had dozens of kingdoms fighting for supremacy, General Suji said. The Americas had the Maya, the Aztec, the Inca, and hundreds of smaller nations. Africa had the Kingdom of Kush, the Mali Empire, Great Zimbabwe. Every continent, every region, constantly at war. And we survived all of it. General Minho pulled up environmental data. We did this on a death world. That's what the galaxy will call Earth when they understand it. A planet where the weather can kill you, where diseases evolve faster than we can cure them, where the ground shakes and splits open, where mountains explode, where storms can level cities, where the ocean can rise up and swallow entire coastlines. We evolved on a planet that was actively trying to kill us, Taeyang said. And we didn't just survive. We thrived. We spread to every corner of the world. We live in deserts, in frozen tundras, in steaming jungles, on mountains, underground, and now in space. We adapt. We overcome. We refuse to give up. The war room was silent for a moment. Every officer there understood what they were really discussing. Not just military history, not just tactics and weapons, but the fundamental nature of humanity itself. Admiral Jiho finally spoke. The Vakrians gave us 72 hours to surrender. They thought that was generous. They thought we would be afraid. He looked around at the assembled leadership of Earth's military. They have no idea what they're dealing with. They're like someone who has won a few schoolyard fights trying to intimidate professional boxers. So what do? Colonel Hyjin asked. Jiho smiled. It was not a kind smile. We give them an education. We show them exactly what 10,000 years of continuous warfare has taught humanity. We demonstrate why threatening a death world species is a very bad idea. Around the table, Earth's warriors nodded. The Vakrian Empire had made their first and last mistake. They had assumed humans were like every other species they had conquered. Weak, afraid, unwilling to fight, they were about to learn just how wrong they were. 12 hours later, Admiral Jiho stood in the same docking bay where he had first met the Vakrians. But everything had changed. His posture was different now. His eyes were harder. The fear and uncertainty that the war diplomat had tried to instill was gone, replaced by something the Vakrians had never encountered before. Absolute confidence. General Hannah stood beside him, her hands clasped behind her back. Commander Taeyang was there too, along with a dozen other officers. But there were no weapons visible this time, no guards. Just humans, standing calmly, waiting. The airlock opened. War diplomat Krell entered with his 2 guards, their crystalline armor gleaming. The alien walked with the same arrogance as before, certain that the humans had spent their 12 hours preparing surrender documents. His forearms spreading in that dominance gesture. You have consulted with your leaders. You understand now that resistance is futile. We are pleased that your species has chosen wisdom over extinction. Present your surrender terms, and we will review them for acceptability. Jiho looked at the war diplomat for a long moment. Then he smiled. It was not a friendly smile. We have reviewed your ultimatum, Jiho said calmly. We have discussed it with our military leadership. We have considered all possible outcomes. And we have reached a decision.
As
Krell's eyes brightened with satisfaction. Excellent. Your cooperation will be noted in the official records. Your world will be integrated into the Empire with minimal. We're not surrendering, Jiho interrupted. The war diplomat stopped moving. The translation device seemed to hiccup, as if uncertain it had translated correctly. You... refuse? I do not think you understand. We have given you time to comprehend your situation. We have been patient. We have been generous. Oh, we understand our situation perfectly, General Hannah said, stepping forward. The question is whether you understand yours. Krell's guards shifted, their weapons humming with power. The war diplomat's voice became harder. You are bluffing. Your scans show we outnumber your fleet 3-1. You have no choice but to surrender. Our scans, Admiral Jiho said. Yes, let's talk about what you scanned. He nodded to Hannah. General Hannah pulled out a small device and pressed a button. The lights in the docking bay dimmed for a moment. Then the entire station seemed to wake up around them. Displays activated on every wall, showing space outside. The Vakrian fleet was still there, hanging in orbit. But now, surrounding them from every direction, were human vessels. Hundreds of them. They appeared as their cloaking systems deactivated, emerging from what had seemed like empty space. Cruisers, destroyers, carriers, weapons platforms, stealth ships. Each one bristling with weapon systems. Krell took a step back. This is a trick. Some kind of hologram. No trick, Commander, Taiyang said. What you scanned were our civilian defense stations, tourist platforms, science vessels. You didn't scan for military ships because you assumed we'd have them all visible, ready to parade around and look threatening. That's what the other species you conquered did, isn't it? Admiral Jiho walked closer to the war diplomat. You made several incorrect assumptions about humanity. First, you assumed we'd be afraid of your war cry. We're not. Second, you assumed we'd be impressed by your conquest of 17 systems. We're not. Third, you assumed we'd never hide our military assets. We did. The displays shifted, showing targeting systems locking onto every Vakrian ship. From orbit, from the moon, from hidden positions throughout the solar system, weapons came online. Missile batteries, railguns, energy weapons, kinetic strike platforms. We have been a spacefaring species for less than 300 years, General Hanna continued, and in that time, we've been preparing for exactly this scenario. First contact with a hostile alien species. We've run simulations. We've built contingency plans. We've created weapons specifically designed for space warfare against unknown enemies. You said you have soldiers who feel no pain, Taiyang added, his voice quiet but intense. That's interesting. We have soldiers who volunteered for suicide missions. Do you understand the difference? Your soldiers can't feel pain. Our soldiers feel everything and fight anyway. They choose to sacrifice themselves for their people. War diplomat Krell's translator emitted confused sounds. This is... You would actually fight? You would sacrifice your own lives? For what? Pride, honor? These are primitive concepts, maybe Jiho said. But there are concepts. Let me tell you something about humans. We have fought wars that lasted hundreds of years. We have defended cities until every last defender was dead. We have held positions that couldn't be held because someone had to try. We don't surrender just because the odds are bad. We fight hardest when our backs are against the wall. Admiral Yuna's voice came through the speakers, broadcasting from her flagship somewhere in the formation. War Diplomat Krell, this is Admiral Yuna of the Fifth Fleet. I'm going to explain something that might help you understand. The Vakrian Empire has conquered 17 civilizations. That's impressive. But every single human in our military has studied hundreds of battles. We know tactics that are thousands of years old. We practice strategies that were ancient, before your empire existed. General Suji's voice joined in from another ship. We have something called The Art of War, written 2,500 years ago. We still read it. We still learn from it. We have books about strategy, about logistics, about psychology in warfare. We don't just fight. We think about fighting constantly. Marshal Dayan's voice came next. You said we had 72 hours to surrender. Did you know humans once fought a battle that lasted over 200 days? In frozen conditions, starving with enemies on all sides, and they didn't surrender. 72 hours isn't a deadline for us. It's barely enough time to finish our morning coffee. The war diplomat was looking around now, seeing the human faces on all the displays. Hundreds of officers, thousands of soldiers, all of them watching, all of them ready. You cannot win, Krell said, but the confidence was gone from his voice. Even if you have more ships than we thought, the Empire will send more. We will return with greater force. Then we'll fight that force too, Jiho said simply. And the one after that, and the one after that, because that's what humans do. We fought each other for 10,000 years, and we're still here. We fought diseases, natural disasters, ice ages, floods, and famines. We survived. We adapted. We became stronger. Commander Taiyang stepped up beside Jiho. You wanted to demonstrate your power? You wanted us to understand that resistance was futile. But let me tell you what you actually demonstrated. You showed us that the Vakrian Empire doesn't understand warfare. You showed us that you've only fought species that surrendered quickly. You've never fought anyone who refused to quit. General Hanna activated another display. It showed detailed scans of the Vakrian ships. While you were making your speech about how powerful you were, we were analyzing your vessels. We know where your weapons are. We know where your engines are. We know where your command centers are. We know how to destroy every ship in your fleet. We even know how to board your vessels, Taiyang added. We have Marines ready to do that right now. Not to destroy your ships, but to capture them. Because humans have this concept called war trophies. We like to keep souvenirs from our victories. Krell was backing toward the airlock now, his guards moving to protect him. This is madness. You are choosing extinction over surrender. The Empire will not forget this insult. We will return. We will show you what true power means. Good, Admiral Jiho said. When you return to your Empire, you tell them exactly what happened here. You tell them that humans don't surrender. You tell them that Earth is not like the other worlds you've conquered. You tell them that if they want this planet, they'll have to take it from us. And we'll make them pay for every inch of space with their blood. The Admiral's voice dropped lower, colder. You have 12 hours to leave our solar system. After that, any Vakrian vessel will be considered an enemy combatant and will be destroyed. No warnings. No negotiations. Just war. You are making a terrible mistake, Krell said. Maybe General Hanna replied, but it's our mistake to make. Now get off our station. The war diplomat and his guards retreated into the airlock. As the door sealed, Jiho could see Krell's face through the window. And for the first time, he saw something that hadn't been there before. Doubt. The airlock detached. The Vakrian shuttle flew back to the fleet. Around Earth, human forces waited. Weapons charged. Crews stood ready. And every single person knew that they might be about to start a war that would echo across the galaxy. But not one of them was afraid. The Vakrian Empire did not withdraw. Pride would not allow it. War diplomat Krell returned to the flagship and reported to the fleet commander, a massive warrior named Thax, who had personally overseen the conquest of 6 worlds. Thax listened to the report about human resistance and made his decision immediately.
Ow.
These primitives dare to threaten the Empire. Thax's voice echoed through the command ship. We will crush them. We will show them what happens to species who refuse the inevitable. Prepare for full assault. Target their orbital stations first, then their major cities. We will make an example of this world. The Vakrian fleet moved into attack formation. 40 warships, each one carrying enough firepower to level a city, their weapons charged, energy crackling across their hulls. They had done this 17 times before. It always ended the same way. Aboard the human vessels, Admiral Yuna watched the Vakrian ships position themselves. She stood on the bridge of the carrier Inchin, surrounded by tactical displays and communication systems. Around Earth, hundreds of human vessels waited for her command. All ships, this is Admiral Yuna, she said calmly. The Vakrians have chosen war. Execute battle plan, Canny. I repeat, execute Canny. The response came from every ship in the fleet. Acknowledged. The Vakrians struck first. Energy beams lanced out from their vessels, targeting the nearest human ships. Explosions bloomed in space as shields absorbed the impacts. Several human vessels took damage, their armor scorched and cratered. Return fire, Yuna commanded. The human response was coordinated with precision that shocked the Vakrians. Railgun rounds traveling at relativistic speeds slammed into Vakrian shields. Missiles streaked across the void, dozens from each ship, overwhelming defensive systems. Energy weapons from orbital platforms added their fire to the barrage. But it wasn't the firepower that mattered. It was the tactics. The human fleet split into 3 groups. The center formation appeared to retreat, pulling back from the Vakrian advance. The Vakrians, seeing weakness, pressed forward eagerly. This was what they expected. Enemies running in fear. Fleet Commander Thax smiled as he watched the humans flee. See, they talk of resistance, but break at the first assault. Continue forward. Destroy them all. But General Suji, commanding the left wing of the human fleet, was already moving. Her ships swept around the Vakrian formation's flank, firing as they went. The Vakrians turned to meet this new threat, just as Marshal Daeun's right wing came at them from the opposite direction. The Vakrians suddenly realized they were being surrounded. The human center hadn't been fleeing. They'd been drawing the Vakrians into a trap. "It's canny, Admiral," Jiho said from Seoul Station, watching the battle unfold. "A double envelopment. We used it 2,200 years ago. They've never seen it before." The Vakrian fleet tried to break out, but everywhere they turned, human ships were waiting. The coordination was perfect. Ships that had been separate commands moments ago moved like parts of a single organism, cutting off escape routes, concentrating fire, adapting to every Vakrian move. "They're using music," one of Krell's officers reported in confusion. "The humans are broadcasting music on their tactical channels." It was true. Each human formation was synchronized to a different piece of music: old battle hymns, orchestral movements, rock songs. The rhythm helped them coordinate without constant communication. It was psychological warfare too. The Vakrians could hear the music, could hear the humans fighting to the beat of their own culture. Commander Taiyang's Marines were executing their own plan. Boarding pods launched from human vessels, punching through Vakrian shields and attaching to their hulls. Marines cut through airlocks and stormed into the alien ships. The Vakrians had never experienced boarding actions before. Their conquered enemies had always fought at range, too afraid to get close. But humans had been fighting hand-to-hand for millennia. The Marines moved through the Vakrian ships like they owned them. Using tactics developed in urban warfare, building, clearing, close-quarters battle, one group, led by Captain Minseo, captured a Vakrian weapons deck by using a smoke grenade and thermal vision technology. So simple the Vakrians hadn't prepared for it. Another team, under Lieutenant Borum, used a shaped charge to blow through 3 decks and attack from an unexpected direction in orbit. The space battle was entering its final phase. The Vakrians had lost 12 ships already, destroyed by focused fire or disabled by precise strikes to their engines. Their formation was broken. Their coordination was failing. Fleet Commander Thax realized with growing horror that his forces were being taken apart by an enemy that should have been primitive. "How?" he demanded. "How are they doing this?" War diplomat Krell, watching from the command deck, understood now. They've done this before. Not to aliens. To each other. This is how they fight. This is what they've been doing for thousands of years. Admiral Yuna saw the Vakrian flagship trying to rally the remaining ships. "All vessels concentrate fire on the command ship. Let's end this." What followed was a demonstration of human firepower that the galaxy had never witnessed. Railguns, missiles, energy weapons, kinetic strikes, all focused on a single target. The Vakrian flagship's shields held for almost 10 seconds. Then they failed. The ship's armor was breached in a dozen places. Systems failed. Power died. The flagship went dark and began to drift. "Cease fire," Yuna commanded. "Send them a message." The communication went out to every surviving Vakrian ship. It was Admiral Gio's voice, calm and clear. "Attention, Vakrian fleet. Your flagship is disabled. You have lost 30% of your vessels. You are surrounded and outmaneuvered. We are offering you one chance to withdraw. Take it, or we will destroy every ship you have." For the first time in Vakrian history, a fleet commander surrendered. Thax's voice came through, broken and defeated. "We draw. We accept your terms." The battle had lasted 18 minutes from the first shot to Thax's surrender. On Earth. In command centers and military bases, humans watched in silence. They had won. Against an empire that had conquered 17 civilizations, they had won in 18 minutes. But there was no celebration. Just quiet relief and grim satisfaction. "Get me the Vakrian flagship," Jiho said. When the connection opened, he saw Fleet Commander Thax, his armor cracked and scorched. "Commander Thax, I'm going to tell you something, and I want you to remember it when you return to your empire." Thax said nothing, just stared. You asked how we did this, Jiho continued. How we defeated you so quickly. The answer is simple. You've been fighting for territory, for conquest, for expansion. But humans... He paused. Humans have been fighting for survival since we lived in caves. We fought each other, fought our planet, fought everything that tried to kill us. This wasn't war for us. This was practice. You let that sink in. Go back to your empire. Tell them what happened here. Tell them that Earth is not for conquest. Tell them that humans don't surrender. And tell them that if they ever come back, we won't be as gentle as we were today. The communication ended. The surviving Vakrian ships limped toward the edge of the solar system and jumped to hyperspace, running for home. In the aftermath, the galaxy changed. The Vakrian Empire sent the battle data to their high command. Analysts studied it. Strategists reviewed it. And they all reached the same conclusion. Humanity was too dangerous to fight. Warning beacons were placed around the Sol system. A new designation was created in the galactic databases, Death World Species. Earth was listed as a class hazard. Its inhabitants were to be avoided, not conquered. Months later, at a galactic summit, the Vakrian Empire sent ambassadors to Earth, not to demand surrender, to propose peace, a non-aggression pact, mutual respect. Admiral Jiho led the human delegation. Beside him were Generals Hana Suji and Minho. Marshal Daeyun and Admiral Yuna were there too. All of them wore their dress uniforms, medals gleaming. The Vakrian ambassador was not Krell. It was a different diplomat, one who bowed deeply when meeting the humans. We underestimated your species, the ambassador said carefully. We see now that humans are not like other civilizations. We wish to coexist peacefully. We accept your proposal, Jiho said, but understand this. Earth will defend itself. Always. If threatened, we will fight, and we will win. The ambassador nodded quickly. We understand. The Empire has learned respect for humanity. As the humans left the negotiating chamber and walked toward their ship, General Minho muttered quietly, Do you think they know we were actually terrified during that battle? General Suji smiled slightly. Humans have been hiding fear behind aggression since the Stone Age. Why would we stop now? Hannah laughed softly. That's the secret, isn't it? We're not fearless. We're just too stubborn to let fear stop us. They boarded their ship. Representatives of a species that had turned a hostile planet into home. That had fought 10,000 years of wars and somehow survived them all. A species that faced an empire of conquerors and made them blink first. The Vakrian. Empire's war cry had echoed across 17 conquered worlds, bringing terror and surrender. When it echoed over Earth, human generals had laughed, and the galaxy learned to fear the sound of human laughter instead.